Okay, pretty obvious what I was just doing there. Now, the whole idea of this project is I want it to look like barnwood. And if you use a sandblaster, I'm very fortunate I have a sandblaster. If you use it, it cuts through this grain and opens it wide open and makes it look really old. And this whole project, just doing this, took me about 5 minutes. Now you can use a buffing wheel. If you use a fine buffing wheel, that works great, but that just puts more time and effort into it. I prefer the sandblasting. And it does a nice job. And what I do is I also mist a little bit here to try and keep your stain nice and even. And did a little test piece as well so that I can test some different stains and see what colors I kind of want. And from there, now we're on to staining. But I'll move into the shop for that. It's a little cold out here today. Okay, first step in staining is you got to decide what tones you really want. I want to go into the grays, and we'll add a little bit of brown and a few other little colors here and there. But first thing you want to do is get a base on. So I usually pick my lightest color and then I'll build on top from there. So we'll get this, I've got most of it already done. We'll get the rest of it in gray. What I like to use the oil base. It gives me a little bit more flexibility. I know that they dry a lot slower, but you'll see why when we get into the next little bit of staining here. So finish this up and then we'll move on to accenting it. Put it on, let it dry a little bit, and then rub it off with some paper towel. You don't want it on there too thick or it'll never dry. Okay, now it's come to the time when we're going to start accenting everything. So what I've got a couple different types of stained colors. I've got an ebony, and I got I don't know, some dark gel stain. So basically what you do is, as long as your rag is fairly wet with the gray, you can put a little bit of color. Let's say we want to darken these knots up, and leave a couple streaks here and there. And then if you've got a little bit of gray left on here, all you do is just feather it out. If it gets a little too dark, just use your gray stain, your light gray. And then this way we are able to accent a few little things. Put a little bit over here. And if you prefer some of the browner tones, same thing. You just give it a little shot here or there. And just basically just feather it all in however you want. Now let's say that that's a little bit too dark for you. So then all you do is go into your grays. Let's throw a little bit on the back side of that. And then you can just go back over it with your gray and feather it back out. So this is the top. We're going to try all our stuff on this first. But you can see that it's just starting to add a little bit of accent to it. It's just not all one plain color. And we'll mess around with it. I got this my practice board here. You can see that you can go to the browner side or you can go to the darker gray side. I kind of like in between, so I'll just keep playing with it until I achieve what I want. So we'll do everything. I might not do too much inside, but once we got that done, then we can let it set. And then once it's set, dry, we'll put a coat of urethane on it just to protect it. You do have to do that with stains. So we'll continue on with doing our accenting, and then when that's all done, give her a coat of finish, hang her up. Now, let's say there's an area where you want to, this is the nice thing about the oil stains. Let's say you want to show a little bit of grain. Well, all I do is just take a little bit of lacquer thinner or paint thinner or anything like that, and then you can just rub off whatever you want. You want to show a little bit of grain on the spot. There. We'll go through it, make sure that everything's kind of nice and smooth, and then we'll let it dry, and then give it a coat of, I'm going to use a rub-on satin. We don't want to have anything glossy or anything like that. It's looking pretty good. It looks like a, well, it looks old. I think I'm going to be happy with it. Alright, I did a little test panel here for you. So this is just that gray, and then this one here is where I've accented a little bit with the dark browns and the ebony. Now there are a lot of different ways you could do this. Underneath here, if you wanted this lighter, you could go with a light tan or something and go with gray over top. So many different combinations. You just keep playing until you find the look that you want. One thing you could do, like some barnwood's got a little bit of paint on it, you could put a little bit of paint on a brush and just flick a little paint on. If you had a little bit of a red stain or something, you can just, it's absolutely endless what you can do with this. So now, just going to bring her back a little bit. So now it's time to put a finish on. Now this one here, I'm just going to use a rub on. I'm using a brush, or a foam brush, but I'll rub it off. Just a lot easier to apply it. And this is just going to be a satin. We don't want to have any sheen or anything like that, so just a matter of just applying it. And it applies very easily, the foam brush. And then we'll just wipe her off. A couple coats, you can see it does bring out a little bit of the highlights a little nicer. Before you get too far on the inside, make sure you take an air hose and blow it out. If you use a paper towel like I used, you're going to get a lot of cooties. Don't want cooties. Nice thing with this rub-on poly, make sure you go with the grain. It just makes it so nice and even. The only other way you could do this is if you were to use a spray gun. But we don't want to overspray it anywhere. Just like that. Beautiful. Okay. We'll finish up with the rest of it. Okay, so we're just getting ready to throw the last coat of clear on. I want to make sure it's dry. It's a little tacky, but I think we're going to be okay. So, one of the things that I do want to mention, when you're all said and done, you're going to have a lot of wet, oily rags, and you need to dispose of them properly. If you got a little fire pit, burn them right away. Do whatever you have to do just to get rid of them, but don't throw them in the garbage and just leave them there. We've all heard stories about them, you know, just igniting on their own. Well, it does happen, because it happened to me. I was doing a project. I think we were using tung oil. Threw them in the garbage, chucked the garbage in the back of my utility trailer. Come back the next day, utility trailer had burned down. So it does happen. So don't take a chance, especially if you live in a hot environment. colder environment, you have less of a chance of this happening, but it does happen, so don't take a chance. Get rid of them. So we're just going to put the last coat on, and then we should be good to go. It's looking good. I'm kind of happy the way it's turning out. And then can't wait till it's done. And then I can start organizing. Okay, I thought I'd give you a bit of a close-up here. You can kind of see what the sandblaster has done up here. It's just kind of made it look like old wood. And I didn't do anything to fill the brad holes or anything like that. By the way, they're called brad pits. I just left it kind of rustic, and it's going to work out fine for me. All right, time to mount it. I finally got the shelf all hung. Now, make sure you're screwing into studs. Just use a stud finder. And for my particular shelf, I've got 6 screws holding her up. Should be more than enough. So, a wonderful project. Give it a try. Thanks for watching.